Welcome, everybody, to Stop and Think. I'm your host, Eileen. If you haven't watched us before, the premise of our show is to try to get everybody to stop being emotionally manipulated and think for yourselves again. Sadly, today we are all easily triggered by social media posts or programs that are heavily opinionated. And half the time, they're not even factual. Not like I like admitting this, but I'm right there with you. I can read something on social media and right away I'm going to write back with a fury. And then I stop and think, why am I so triggered by this? And was this post meant to trigger me and emotionally sway me? I'm hoping we can all start learning to tune out the noise and tune in the truth. Many of us are so tired of the division, anger, hate, and fear that we're all living with every single day. Not only are we not in the top 10 happiest countries, we don't even make the top 20 anymore. The chaos and attempt to destabilize us is not accidental. Bad actors like Iran, China, Russia, or even some anarchists here like Steve Bannon or QAnon use social media as a means to manipulate us and divide us, and we won't fall for the lies anymore. And while we're at it, let's stop assuming that just because somebody is now in the House or the Senate, that they're necessarily telling the truth. Sometimes to rile up their base, they will say anything. As an example, Marjorie Taylor Greene implying that the Catholic Church is satanic, and Rashida Tlaib spreading Hamas lies about the bombing of a hospital, which were debunked by not only the United States, but also by Europe. And recently, to stoke up his base, we had a GOP Michigan state legislator say a group at the airport were illegal invaders. Who were these illegal invaders in reality? The Gonzaga men's basketball team. We must realize that sometimes this BS escalates anger that causes death threats or leads to violence itself. And we need to pull the plug on all this nonsense now. Hate speech has risen exponentially in the last number of years. Let's take a look at what words can do. This is crime, not just hate speech, criminal behavior. Hate speech that results in violence should not be excused by the First Amendment. Bullying shouldn't be excused as a First Amendment right when it results in physical or deadly harm. People should start being held accountable. Americans are not each other's enemies. We're meant to be diverse in both thought and type. That's our strength. It's called balance. The program today is going to focus on character. We'll be right back. Let's talk a little bit about character. I have to get this comment out. We used to count on the people in the Congress to be our leaders. Today, sadly, we have many politicians who are followers of whatever their constituents want to hear, instead of leading their constituents on the honest path. Who's leading whom? And there are those that purposely lie and attempt to create distrust in our government because they're playing into emotional anger that's been fueled by the extremes of both parties. They want you to distrust the government in the hopes you'll give them more power. I need to state this very important fact. The government of the United States works. Democracy works. The only time it doesn't is when everybody's so busy fighting each other, nobody gets anything accomplished. We have an amazingly balanced governmental structure. We didn't get to be one of the world's most powerful nations by doing things stupidly. Are we perfect? No. Do mistakes happen? Yes. But when we act with integrity and vision, we are unstoppable. Yep. Take a look at this graphic. The United States has had the fastest economic recovery after COVID in the world. However, that said, we are lacking some character in parts of our government, particularly in the House. And to quote my friend Sam Bouban, some representatives are more like the Attention Caucus than the GOP Freedom Caucus. Yes, we have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, and others who play games with our Congress. Think about it. They're working against their own Republican leaders of the House that most voted for, just because something didn't go their way. Matt Gaetz pushed to get rid of Kevin McCarthy. Now Marjorie Taylor Greene pushes to get rid of Mike Johnson. None of them seem interested in governing at all. They turn on the anger and the nonsense anytime the cameras are rolling. They're more interested in fame than serving the American people. And speaking of character, here are two of the most embarrassing members, one from the Senate, one from the House, one a Republican, one a Democrat. What can we say about George Santos that hasn't been said? Under investigation for being a liar, con artist, fraudster, who even stole from a veterans GoFundMe, and of course from his own campaign. And on the Democrat side, we have Bob Menendez with multiple counts of bribery and payoffs against him. What happened to the character of our leaders? I'll tell you what happened. We did. We're putting people in power who don't belong there. And how about GOP Senator Tommy Tuberville, who held up the entire Senate regarding military promotions for 10 months because he didn't understand that his personal religious views are not allowed to get in the way of our military and their spouses' rights. We need to stop voting these people into power. Speaking of voting, my special guest today has been a national politician in the House and is currently running for mayor of Las Vegas. You'll meet her a little later in the show. Now, stay tuned for our next segment called Fact or Fantasy. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is our segment called Fact or Fantasy. Here we're revealing some of the things that go out on news or social media that are actually nonsense, barely a fact in them, and yet they trigger multiple people on both sides of the aisle. People are getting all worked up over stuff that isn't even real. You'll see what I mean in just a moment. Let's begin with one about Trump. Trump was carrying on about Biden canceling Easter and replacing it with the Transgender Day of Visibility. What's the reality? The Transgender Day of Visibility has been going on for 15 years, every year, on March 31st. Biden did not create this. Easter just happened to fall on the same day this year. Sadly, this nonsense was carried by many right-wing outlets and shared by many. It's absolute fantasy. Again, a story created to trigger extreme upset in his evangelical base. And it wasn't true. Now, I'll take one from the other side. This was an image going around, a friend sent to me, of Bruce Springsteen wearing an anti-Trump t-shirt. The minute I saw it, I thought, nah, I don't think this is real. One quick check from a reliable source, and indeed it was a fantasy, not a fact. Similarly, shared all over the place, there was a vulgar statement about Trump allegedly on the Sphere in Las Vegas. And the minute I saw that, I knew it was fake, more fantasy. We all need to be extra careful that we are not spreading lies by others. And sadly, this will be even more complex as AI becomes more prevalent. Do your homework. And lastly, and this one's a bit sensitive, but we've got to stop a fantasy repeated by far-right politicians like Lauren Boebert, Mike Johnson, and others, claiming America is and was a Christian country, and that the Founding Fathers were all Christian, and the church should rule the state. First of all, many of the Founding Fathers believed in a form of deism, not traditional Christianity. And you can see that here. Even Adams, who was Christian, clearly stated in a 1797 treaty, America is not a Christian nation. The Founding Fathers purposely made us non-specific religiously, as they wanted to be sure that this was a free nation, so people experiencing religious persecution could come here and safely worship as they please. We have to remember that at that time, Catholics were persecuted in England for many years, as well as other Christian denominations, Jews, and others. In addition, the First Amendment makes it very clear there is no one religion over America, a total fantasy from the far right that causes upset and anger for many. We must understand this is not a liberal belief, it's an American one and fact. I think some of the far right need to read our history and our Constitution. Next up comes the interview segment, and I'm really excited to hear what a former national politician, now running for mayor of Las Vegas, has to say about the current state of affairs here and in Washington. Stay right there. Welcome back, everybody. I'm very pleased to introduce my guest today for the interview segment of our show. She's been a major political force in both Las Vegas and the state of Nevada, and has helped with everything from education to healthcare to veterans affairs and so on. I'm pleased to welcome Las Vegas attorney, businesswoman, former U.S. Congresswoman, and now Las Vegas mayoral candidate, Shelley Berkley. Nice to see you, Shelley.
Eileen, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I have a few questions for you, and then you can make a closing statement about your campaign if you'd like.
Thank you.
Since you spent many years in Washington, I'm wondering how you feel about the state of affairs today, that I'm personally appalled with the constant infighting in the Republican Party and extreme differences in viewpoints in the Democratic Party. I feel like the loudest voices are the extremists in both parties, and it's tearing us in two. So, here's my first question. You are the only mayoral candidate, I believe, who has national experience.
Yes.
So what do you think about what appears to be the paralysis of our politics today?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, and I agree with what you just said. Our Congress is broken. People aren't working together. They are infighting in their own parties. Forget the two parties fighting with each other. Now you have, members on the extreme left, fighting with their establishment people in Congress. And on the far right, you've got the Freedom Caucus that is trying to make decisions for the entire Republican Party. And you're right, it creates paralysis. It's not good for our country. It's certainly not good for our allies. And how unfortunate that our children are watching what's going on in our government right now and thinking that may be normal. It's not.
It's not.
And
no,
I can give you, the VA hospital in North Las Vegas was part of my congressional district. And we had hundreds of thousands of veterans and no hospital here in Southern Nevada to care for them.
Wow.
So I worked very hard and ultimately got the funding for that remarkable hospital, but it was in a Republican administration. George Bush was president, and it was a Republican Congress. But you were able to plead your case, explain why you needed it in your congressional district, and even though the congressional district I represented was definitely slanted Democratic, that was not an issue. Under a Republican administration and a Republican Congress, we got the funding for a VA hospital here in Southern Nevada because we needed one.
And you worked together.
And we worked together to get
There's
it
a
done.
thought.
Yeah, and what a shame that's not happening now. I don't think that hospital could have been built now. And another thing, Eileen, that I keep telling people, public service means you serve the public.
Thank you.
Not the other way around. I mean, the public's not supposed to serve me. I'm supposed to serve the public.
I have to just interject one thing here. I find a lot of these extremists on both sides self-serving. Self-serving. They're not even waiting for us to serve them. They're just self-serving. Whatever works with their ideology, that's the way it should be. They don't even care what's good for the American people anymore. Here's my next question. Since you've had so much experience at the federal level, do you think that helps you a great deal in bringing some of that federal funding back to Las Vegas?
Absolutely. Look, I have federal experience, state experience. Remember, I served in the Nevada State Assembly.
I forgot.
Very good,
Thank
very close friends with the members of the county commission.
Uh-huh.
And of course, now I'm running for a local position. The fact is that so many of the issues that are confronting us, homelessness, affordable housing, they're federal issues, state issues, county issues, and municipal issues. And I think what I bring, I'm uniquely qualified and able to bring everybody together. People don't realize when they're on Las Vegas Boulevard and they cross
a certain
Sahara,
street,
they're now in the county.
Yeah.
They don't know the difference.
No,
but
they all think the Strip is part of the city of Las Vegas.
Yes, and I'm trying not to dissuade anyone.
But you do represent everybody.
You do.
I mean, when I was listening to Carolyn Goodman on national TV, I'm going, well, she's representing all of us. Because people don't delineate where's this section of the city.
That's exactly right. And
so
I think
you're
that's
a national voice, even though you're a mayor for the city. One of the things that's changed a lot, and I think you'll bring that centrist mentality back to government, is that we used to look at solutions, not sides. You know, everybody else is like, what side are you on? No, it's about solutions for the ultimate good.
You know, one of my commercials, and I think it's airing now, I'm not sure, but it says, you know, if you have a pothole that needs to be fixed, you don't care if that person's a Republican or a Democrat. You want your pothole fixed.
Yes.
And I think that's what I bring to the city, is just let's be solution oriented, get things done, and move on to the next challenge.
Here's my third question. There's 6. We know the major problems every mayoral candidate says they're going to solve, like homelessness, veterans affairs, addictions, food deserts, healthcare inequality. How do you see yourself finding actual solutions to some of these problems and not just making promises?
Yes, and that's very important, not to promise, not to overpromise, and have people have an expectation that you can never satisfy. And I think it's very important when I disagreed with somebody, if they came to my office and said, you know, I would really like your support on this particular matter. If I did not believe I could support them because I was on the other side, I told them that in as nice a way as possible, but I never wanted anybody walking out of my office thinking that
they were unheard.
Yes, or that I was siding with them when I wasn't.
You know, one thing also, another question, so many say they're going to bring diverse businesses to Vegas, but one of the problems we have is we rank so low in education, and it turns a lot of companies off. What real-life solutions do you have for this?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked me that question, because this has been an issue for me for decades. We fund our...
I feel that same way.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do. We fund our education. The state of Nevada funds its education system 49th in the United States. Some people argue might be 46, might be 47, but it's very low. Now, the education I got in the Clark County School District, because we moved here when I was in 8th grade, I graduated Valley High School. It was wonderful for the life I'm leading. It's obsolete for the life that my children and grandchildren are going to be leading. And so we need to improve our educational services. And you are exactly right. I sat for 10 years on the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance board. That board's mission is to bring in businesses that are with good paying jobs, not dreck, you know, where, you know, you're just barely hanging in and you need 2 jobs to survive. Good paying jobs and companies that would enhance our community. I love the gaming industry. I was in gaming for 9.5 years.
Well, you also were an attorney.
I was a gaming attorney.
That's what I thought.
But even as much as I love the gaming industry, we cannot continue to be reliant on one industry. So I am a big proponent of diversifying our economy, and you hit the nail on the head. So many businesses.
It's got to start with education.
They need, first of all, they're not going to relocate their management teams to a community that doesn't provide as good education as they're getting where they come from. And number 2, they need a well-trained workforce. If we can't provide the training, then they can't move here.
They can't move here. You may not have that power in the jurisdiction, but you have that power nationally and internationally, because Vegas is an international city.
It is.
We definitely have an international presence. And
it's a great city.
It's so much more than people know.
Yes.
And like I once did a little promo piece that said Vegas, a fun place to play, a great place to live. And we need to do more.
I grew up here. My family moved here quite by accident, but once I started school and I went to John C. Fremont, it was, I'm so grateful to my parents for running out of gas right around Las Vegas and ending up here.
Yeah.
I mean, it
well,
gave
it
us
also
a
is,
life.
I'm all about opportunity. I'm an entrepreneur with a few different little companies, tiny ones. But I believe if you come here, there's so much opportunity here because we're big and small. My fifth question, I know it seems popular today to say people want outsiders and not politicians to run the government. I'm actually the opposite. I want someone who knows how to get things done. So what would you say are the 2 or 3 strongest reasons your lengthy political service is of benefit?
Well, thank you for that question. Look, I could have easily retired now. I just did 9.5 years as a CEO and senior provost of Touro University. Prior to that, 7 terms in Congress, and prior to that on the Board of Regents, and then in the Nevada State Assembly. But I felt...
And you worked a couple of kids in there or something?
I had a couple of kids, yes, indeed.
Just want to make sure people know you're balanced.
Oh, yes, oh, absolutely. But I felt that I had so much more to give. I've got plenty of energy, and I enjoy good health. And why would I go sit at the beach or golf my days away when I can be contributing more to my fellow man and my fellow citizens?
Good answer.
Oh, thank you.
A real good answer. The last question, if you could change one thing about Las Vegas right away, what would be the first thing you would address?
Well, I think we talked about it already. There's a couple of issues that we have that need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed and then move on. One of them, of course, is our education system. Second is our transportation system.
Oh, that's good.
We really do need, I mean, we're expanding. We have, a lot of people live in suburbia now, and they need their jobs and their children's schools are closer to the inner city. We need a better transportation system.
Boy, that's nobody talks much about that. So thank you for that. As somebody who used to go to Cashman Field and now has to go out to the Aviators games because I'm a season ticket holder for baseball, for AAA for decades. Yeah. It's far when you live in Henderson, and there's no logical way to get there.
And the third thing I would say is access to affordable health care. As I believe that because jobs are plentiful, our economy is strong, people are going to be pouring into our community. They're going to demand affordable housing. They're going to demand better education for their kids. They're going to demand being able to see a doctor and being able to afford to go to a doctor. All of these issues are part of quality of life of any community. I mean, it's good for democracy.
Right.
You need a well-educated electorate making informed decisions.
Yeah,
and that's why public education is so important.
I want to first of all say thank you so much for coming to the show.
My pleasure.
I know how outrageously busy you are. And I will say to the viewers, I've been to a few events. She's always there. I mean, she's always talking to the people of different ethnicities, different races, different socioeconomic backgrounds, and listening.
I love public service. And if you don't love public service, you shouldn't be in this line of work. But I can promise you this, and all of the people that are watching, if I am elected, I will do everything I can to help to improve the quality of their lives as I would for my own children and grandchildren that call Las Vegas home. Where 4 generations of my family have lived in Las Vegas now, and we love it. We wouldn't imagine living anyplace else. And now it's time to roll up my sleeves and continue my lifetime commitment to public service. I believe in it. I love it. And I like people in general. It makes me feel good to give them a helping hand.
You know, I have to say that this has been really eye-opening because so often people are in this for power, not for service. And so it's so nice to hear a politician talk about a lifelong joy of service. Thank you again.
Thank you, Eileen.
And
Hope
it's so good talking to you. Hope to see
too.
you soon. And we'll get ready with our next segment shortly. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In this last segment, I'd like to give you my take on the subject of character. I understand that there will always be times when some politicians behave badly, just like the rest of society. There will always be the occasional scandal. But that's not the same as a total lack of character. The importance of character in politicians cannot be overstated, as it's the foundation upon which trust, integrity, and accountability rest. A politician's character influences their decision-making, their ethical standards, and their ability to lead effectively. Creating chaos and putting our Congress in turmoil simply for fame or attention is something we can no longer put up with. Compromising the work of the House or stifling the Senate's ability to move forward is a terrible lack of character and an obvious leaning towards self-interest. Let's not listen to their attention-getting noise anymore. Let's start looking for those with the character required to lead. I'd like to hear your take on today's program. Email me or send me a video or audio clip on this matter. If we feature your take, we'll send you a little gift. Email it to stopandthink@gmail.com now. Visit VegasLifeTV.us for more information. On a final note, I want to leave you with my favorite thought. Never worry about who will be offended if you speak the truth. Worry about who will be misled, deceived, or destroyed if you don't. My friends, remember to stop and think. This has been your host, Eileen. Good day, everyone.